I knew I was going to forget to turn the microphone on. Hey everybody, it's Jackie Luqman.
And this is Abdul Shahid Luqman, also known as Baba Luqman.
And welcome to another edition of Live in Coffee, Current Events and Politics in Luqman Nation.
The most dangerous show on social media anywhere.
Absolutely.
Yep, it is. Sorry, Roland. I mean, you rolling with your unfiltered. You ain't more unfiltered than we are.
Nope, not at all.
Yep,
So
this old corporate pandering self.
see, we started the show off starting trouble. Good grief. I mean, look, y'all, thanks for tuning in.
Lisa
what?
said audio. So,
Oh,
how is it now, Lisa?
audio?
Because we had forgot to turn the mic on.
Yeah, we did forget to turn the mic on.
So, I mean, give us a heads up.
So give it a second. Give it a second to come through. Yeah, we, as you can see, we are trying out a few new things, and hopefully things are things are coming through well. I think the audio is straightened out because Joel just responded over on YouTube. Take that, Roland. So
Right. Okay, Cindy K said the audio is good. Thank you,
excellent,
Cindy.
wonderful. So look, y'all, we hope that you like the new setup that we have behind us here, because this is what we're gonna be going with. And honestly, y'all, this has been the result of you all support and some tips from our friends to help us figure out how to do some things. So we really, really appreciate it.
Right.
Robert, you know, you are you're the man. Thank you so much. So
Yep.
this is quite a bit. Well, go ahead. Come on. What's going on in the world today?
Well, let me just first of all I just like to welcome all of you guys for checking us out tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Share this video if you're new, or if you're old and haven't done it. Please click on the notifications so you will be updated and know when we're getting ready to come back on again, because you're not going to want to miss this. So I'm just letting you know you're not going to want to miss it.
Right.
And also just spread the word around. I mean, I understand we're on social media and all, but word of mouth, we take that too. I mean, we're just trying to just get the message out there. And like I said, we talk about Roland Martin unfiltered and all this stuff and keeping it real. Come on, he doesn't know what keeping it real means. We keep it real over here. So again, share this video with your friends, your associates, your enemies, and all this other kind of stuff. And if you guys are capable of having a watch party, I mean, do that. So, all right, I got that all out of the way.
Yeah.
So what's happening is now, Jackie, we're going to start with one of our first stories.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they have this thing now with, the administration, the Trump administration is trying to bully, and that's what I have to say, is that they're trying to bully states to reopen the schools. Now, this is after we done already spoke about last show, and it's been blaring all across the news, how COVID is, I can't even say COVID is making a comeback. It never went anywhere.
No.
But I mean, but because of this disastrous reopening plans that these states had, going against the advice of science,
Right.
and now it's coming to bite them in the ass. And what's happening is now a lot of states started to roll back their reopening plans, or scale back, as they say. But the Trump administration, not to be outdone, and God forbid they would get on, they would try to make things better. No, they're saying that along with his cohort, Betsy DeVos, want the schools to reopen, and oh no, it's just not that. And now Trump, as he's good at now, he's threatening these states by saying that he will sign an executive order withholding federal funds that are earmarked for education if these states don't comply with his bullying order of sending kids back to school without a plan.
Without a plan, and that's and we were watching Al Jazeera this morning.
Yes.
And they had there was some. No, it wasn't. It was RT America. It wasn't Al Jazeera. We were watching RT America, and there was some conservative male human on there talking about, well, kids aren't spreading COVID. Every other country in the world has their kids going back to school. Every other developed nation in the world took this virus seriously as soon as they knew that it was a pandemic.
Right.
And they took the steps that were required to protect their people from the spread of the virus. One of those steps was truly locking down their countries, closing businesses, encouraging people to stay at home. Many countries provided personal protective equipment to their citizens. Mm-hmm. These are the things that the United States didn't do at all. Right?
And still isn't doing.
And still is not doing. So now you've got Trump, and it's interesting that his press secretary, whatever her name is, McCannany, I don't know what that woman's name is, but she said that, Trump wants the schools open and he wants them, every kid in their classroom, and the science should not get in the way of this. It's like, that's like saying that is like saying, the science shouldn't get in the way of us building houses on top of a radioactive, a nuclear waste site. It's just the most ignorant. I can't even just call it anti-science. It's ignorant. It's ignorant. It's dangerous, especially since we do know that reports have come out that in Texas, over 80 infants, babies, tested positive for COVID-19.
Babies, infants.
Tested positive for... So, this idea that children aren't spreading the virus, I'm not sure where these... I understand that initially scientists thought that was true. Right. Because they weren't seeing these cases in a lot of children. But the fact of the matter is that the science is absolutely changing, because now children are contracting the virus. Now, right. They may not be contracting full-blown COVID-19. They may not be getting sick. But if they are contracting the virus, then that means they can transmit the virus to adults.
Yeah, and it also means that these are babies, so they're not joining they're not going to Trump rallies, and they're not right. They're not, so that means that someone's bringing it to them. Right. So we're talking about this type, but this press secretary, I hope if whatever degree school she got her degree from, they should write her a letter and say, please don't mention us. Give it back. Yeah. Don't mention that you got a degree from here. Because, how stupid can that... Don't let the sign... But this is the way... Pardon me. But this is the way that this administration has been operating. They've been operating on this this divide, this cultural war, this the American political scene, somewhat like American culture, is grossly anti-intellectual anyway. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, but... to be this way in the midst of a pandemic, and again, like you said, it's ridiculous. Here it is. You're looking for leadership from this administration, only to be told that, we're just going to send you there. We don't have a plan, and we don't care what science says. But we understand that this is not about. Trump said that this is, he's trying to put it like, parents want to get back to work. Parents want, they can't go to their jobs because, the way he's describing this, Jackie, is like, they got these kids, and these kids are just messing everything up.
They're just making everything, right. They're just getting in the way of our economic recovery.
Right, these teachers are, in cahoots with the kids. They don't want to work. The kids don't want to go to school. And these poor parents, like they want to work and they want to contribute to the economy and they can't because they got these selfish teachers kids. And these selfish kids. And this is what he's saying. He's, and the thing of it is, look. I think what parents want the most, and this has been proven, is that what parents want the most is not to rush back to their job, What parents want the most is for their kids to go to a safe environment.
Exactly.
A clean environment.
Exactly.
A safe environment. They don't want to have to worry about their children becoming infected by COVID. And also those who are going to be responsible for them, the teachers, janitorial staff, and all these people. You know, they also don't want to go back. They want to protect themselves too and make sure that they're not putting themselves at risk. But does this matter to Betsy DeVos? No.
No.
Does it matter to Donald Trump? No. And so this is where we have it. You're having already states that are saying that they're just going to just flat outright not even comply with this thing.
Yeah, I mean, and let's be clear. If you all can see in the middle, lower half of the screen there, the Hill is reporting that the former CDC director says that without additional resources, children of color will be disproportionately affected as schools open. Now, this is sending everybody's kids back to school in the middle of this coronavirus pandemic is a bad idea for everybody's kids. But for our kids, it's going to be even worse. And this is the former CDC head, Richard Bressler, said this. He said, if we're not intentional about making sure that doesn't happen, it will happen. Now, what did we say last week about people in this administration? We're pretty sure that there were people in this administration who, when they saw the numbers and the data that showed who was dying from COVID-19, they were like, maybe let's not do so much to prevent that. So trust and believe, folks, these people who are pushing to send kids back to school, they know that there are some parents who are able to afford to tutor their kids at home. Not a lot, since what were we watching this morning? I think there was also RT America in Texas.
You talking about the food line?
Yes, the food. I mean, not as many, but a whole. This is going to affect a lot of so-called middle class white parents who cannot afford to tutor their kids and can't afford not to go back to work too, because they need to make money to eat. But the people in this administration, and some, and we're not just gonna say it's just Republicans. There are plenty of Democrats too who feel this way. Let's just call them capitalists, because that's the problem. Plenty of capitalists honestly have no idea how the rest of us live, and guess what? They don't care. So they know that what Richard Bressler is saying is true. Richard Besser, the former head of the CDC, Besser said death rates for blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans far surpasses their proportion of the population. Well, the people who are making these decisions about sending our kids back to public school, they know this. They're not unaware that black and Latinx and Native American people disproportionately are dying from this virus. They are hoping that more of us do.
Well, you know, the government has shown time and time again what it's really about is they don't want to come up off the money. They don't want to come off the money. They don't want to spend the money. They don't want to extend. Here you have the unemployment benefit, $600 a week, which I think has expired or
it's about to expire at the end of this month.
Congress is on vacation, so there's nobody there to even deal with that. You know what I mean? And from all of the evidence that we're seeing coming out and all of the signals that's coming out of this administration, they don't even want to do it. They don't want. And see, this is the thing. Now, again, we've said this time and time again. Others done said this time and time again. When are we going to get tired of a government that's supposed to represent us, that will go out of its way to make sure that businesses are straight, to make sure, I mean, they're already talking about, because of the we said no resurgence, but because of the spike in COVID infections, the first thing they're saying is, we got to pass another business stimulus package. Right. Now, they're saying that, but no one is saying, like, hey, look, what about extending the unemployment? What about, here you have hospitals now in Florida and all of the harder hit states that are already at 90% capacity as far as the amount that they can treat.
ICU beds.
Beds and right. So they're already, I think Florida's at 90% capacity. California is getting there. Other states, man,
Texas.
Texas. I mean, this is the result of, especially in the South, this is the result of all of these Republican governors when the American, the Affordable Care Act, when that was being offered to these states. And because they didn't like it, because the black guy was the one that they didn't like that, and because the billionaire class and the and all of the insurance lobbyists and all was telling them, no, you don't want that because that's going to be bad. And so just to make a point, because see, these people that made these decisions, they were fine already. I mean, these governors and all these politicians, they were already fine. They had their health care. They got their health care. They're fine. Most of them were millionaires anyway. But they made the decision on behalf of others that, oh no, we don't want this. Or we don't want the ACA. We don't want that. We're going to refuse it and all this. So now, after the selfish decisions that were made by these politicians, now the chickens are coming home to roost,
right?
And there's nothing there. So now you go in Texas, you have a football stadium parking lot that's lined up with tractor trailers, and they're sitting up there that we saw on TV this morning. They're sitting up there, the media anticipating this throng of people, this crowd of people that's coming to get handouts.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Free food.
Right, free food. Now, see, the thing of it is, this is why we say in the title, Welcome to the Fascist States of America. Because, see, the thing of it is, this is all of the result of American fascism. The fact that you have a government that is not, it's funny and sad that you got the same administration that would sit up there and say, well, we're not Trump, who said that he's not going to have a federal mandate to wear a mask because, I want people to have a certain amount of freedom. But they don't have the freedom to decide whether their kids can go back to school or not.
Oh, and exactly. And let's be clear, when we are talking about welcome to the fascist states of America, we're saying to you who did not understand that there are some of us who have always lived under a fascist regime in this country. We're literally telling you, welcome to the America that we've always lived in.
Yep,
because
there you go.
This is the key part of this article from The Hill, where Besser, the former head of the CDC, points out why this is a problem, sending everybody's kids to schools, and unless this country provides additional resources to Black, Latino, and Native American communities, it's going to kill more of our kids. It's going to kill more of us. This is why. He added that schools in the U.S. are funded mostly off property taxes. Still true. Which he said will allow wealthy communities to make adjustments to schools that are necessary for that to be safer places for children, staff, and teachers. That's very expensive. It takes looking at your airflow, making sure you have enough classrooms so you don't need as many children in each class and they can socially distance. It means hiring staff who can decontaminate classrooms and disinfect them every night, and staff to screen staff and children every morning. This is why this is so important. In low-income communities, schools have been underinvested for generations. Without additional resources, we will see children of color, Black and brown children disproportionately affected as schools start to open. What does that mean? What does that mean for our kids? That the fact that so many Black and brown and Native American people live in communities that are very poor. Most of our kids go to public schools that are funded by property taxes. Most of us live in major cities, so most of us live in apartment buildings. If you live in a major city, if you live in a major city, you live in an apartment, so you personally don't pay property taxes. Property taxes come from homeowners.
Yes. Yep.
And how many of us are not homeowners? We don't live in areas, but then if we are homeowners, how many Black and Latino and Native American people live in homes that are grossly undervalued by the real estate system, and not just the private real estate system, but the public agencies that assess the property assessment. That was the word I was looking for. By public property assessment offices. So, I mean, yes, on the one hand, you don't want your property taxes being so high that you can't afford to own the home. But when you consider what property taxes fund,
Mm-hmm.
the education of your children in public schools, then you're like, well, wait a minute now. So if all of these people who live in apartment buildings are sending their children to public schools, then the funds for those public schools are coming from the state budget. The city budget comes from the federal government. And you know how the federal government has been talking about they've been not wanting to pay adequately fund public schools. They've been wanting to slash the budgets because of waste and fraud and all this kind of garbage. But really, all it is a gambit to privatize public schools. That's what this is.
Yeah, and let you know, the federal budget, the federal contribution to education is like 10%
Right.
of the federal budget. But we're talking about, and I want people to be clear on this, is the fact that I'm glad that this article says something about the systemic underinvestment of our public schools. It wasn't too long ago that children in Baltimore was going to school in the wintertime with no heat.
That was just last year.
That was just last year. I mean, I'm talking about schools where, you know, the quality of the buildings and everything else. So when you're talking about our children mainly going to these schools that are already dilapidated, that's in need of repair, and you know the heating systems don't work. Now you throw a virus in there,
right?
You know, you throw a virus in there. So you know we couldn't even depend on the government to even get the heat fixed for our kids in places like Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're supposed to trust that they're going to provide a sterile-free environment, or at least let's say a safe environment, so that our kids wouldn't become infected. The thing of it is that it's not just, as you said, the Republicans and the Democrats. The fact of it is that a lot of the property taxes, it's not that the money's not there. This is one of the reasons why to defund the police. The reason why defunding the police is so important,
right?
Because it's not. Look, you take revenue, you put revenue in. It's where they put it.
Right.
So here it is that here we are. We're looking at places like New York City, D.C. and stuff where the police department, their budget is more than some countries' armies.
I mean, the New York City police budget was $6 billion.
Right.
With a B.
So what I'm saying, so my point being is that here it is that it's not that the money's not there. Mm-hmm. See, they have to put that money in policing because, see, when the under investing in these other places, they know it's going to create social problems. So when those social problems that we're starting to see now, when they start to rear its ugly head, then that's when you're going to tap the police on the shoulder and be like, you know, all that money we gave you, well, it's time for us to cash that check in because this is what happened. We've been waiting on this day. Mm-hmm. So I do agree that this is everybody know that DeVos has always been a proponent of privatizing education, public education, and we know that we said this before, that COVID is you know that the billionaire class, the oligarchs, and whatever you want to label them, they are the ones that's looking at this as some kind of Darwinian experiment, and they're looking at this as we can have a different America here. Mm-hmm. We can have a different America where our interests are much better served. So this is what they're looking at. They're tired of spending money on black and brown people. They're tired of spending money on black. If you look at everybody who they want to return to these schools, again, all of these jobs that require the maintenance of these schools and stuff. Most of these are from black, brown, and people. That's going to be the janitors. That's going to be all these people tasked with this stuff. Also, a lot of the school, a lot of the teachers who are pushing back on this and everything, they're not even being backed up. So it's not, when we talk about this funding and everything, it's not the fact that the money isn't there. And again, we could talk again about how the Democrats are just as complicit in this too, because Baltimore, there hasn't been a Republican that ran Baltimore in decades. There hasn't been, you got de Blasio up there, who's a Democrat. You got a lot of these cities that are ran by Democrats.
Right.
And at the same time, they keep on saying, no, we don't have enough money for this, enough money for that. But somehow the police can have $6 billion.
Exactly.
And so when you have a fascist state, and when you look at these examples of fascism throughout history, you will always find that the best funded parts of any fascist society are the security forces.
That's right. And let's be really, really clear about how the Democrats play a role in this, because you've got companies like Amazon that will come into a city that is, supposedly depressed without, any kind of economic opportunities for people who live here, which is mostly us in these cities, mostly black, mostly Latino people. You've got a large segment of low wage or unemployed people, and then what do the Jeff Bezos and the Walmarts do? They'll say, well, we'll build a store or a warehouse in your city, but we want a deal where we don't pay property taxes. We'll build our warehouse, but the contract has to say that we don't pay taxes for 20 years. So what do we get?
This is Section 8 for corporations.
Come on now.
That's
exactly
right.
What it is.
I mean, anytime you sit back and the richest man in the world, who's on track of becoming the first known trillionaire, is telling depressed communities, because they're all fighting. See, again, we don't understand. We really don't understand the type of Pandora's box we opened up when we started electing the billionaire class into politics.
Yeah.
When we started allowing government to be taken over by these billionaire class of people, by the Trumps. And, we don't realize the Pandora's box we opened up in. They were skilled at manipulating the cultural divide, as Trump is doing now. They were skilled at stoking the racist undertones in America. They were skilled at corporate monopoly of the media, so their message is always out there. The propaganda of propagandizing the American public into going against their own best interests.
Yep.
Unions. I've been hearing this since Reagan. You know what I mean? Unions are bad. That Rush Limbaugh for the last 30 years. That was his constant message.
Yep.
Unions are bad. You don't need handouts. Handouts is didn't really want to say it, but basically it was like, this rugged individualism and stuff, which I heard coined by Rush Limbaugh back in the 80s. So they've been putting their message out there for damn near 40 years. And so now they had the people right where they wanted them. And now all of a sudden now the people, they just trickle down economic stuff, all of this stuff that somehow if you just gave the rich more money, then they're, through the benevolence of their heart, they were just going to, throw us something. And what happened is that once they got in and they were able to get their hands, their greedy little hands onto the coffers and stuff, what did they do? All they did was cut taxes on themselves.
Yes, they did.
And raise taxes on everybody else, and increase this military so that this military can go overseas and promote their interests, and increase the police budget so the police could keep us at bay. So when, in case the pitchforks come out, and because they knew that there was going to be gross inequality in this society, and they knew that one day that bill was going to be due.
That's right.
So again, when you have people come along who had good ideas, who were running for office and who had ideas that was outside the box, we were told by the corporate media that the billionaires own that, oh, don't listen to that guy, he's a nut. Don't listen to this woman, she's a flake. Oh no, this wouldn't work because how can we afford it? I remember I called C-SPAN one time, Jackie, and they had this woman who was sitting up there talking about unemployment. And this was during the recession of 2008. And I remember calling C-SPAN the first time I actually really got through. And I asked this woman, I said, why is it that we're talking about how we're going to get out of this? Why can't the government do what the government did back during the Depression? Why couldn't the government have another WPA or CCC? Why couldn't the government create jobs and put people back to work so the people can spend and get the economy running? And the first thing she said is, well, that's a good idea, but it's going to be very expensive. And it's not expensive now for people to lose their home, for banks to foreclose on people. This is what they want. So when it comes to asking them about, well, hey, we got out of this before because government created jobs. Government bailed out Main Street. So why we can't do that now? Oh, well, because it's too expensive. But it's okay for people to lose their homes. It's okay for people to lose their jobs. It's okay to have this mass of unemployed people who are just going to rely on what little bit of social safety net that the country offers. That's somehow less expensive than the government just saying, hey, let's put everybody back to work again. Let's give people dignity. Let's give people respect. And then we can get the economy going. They don't want to do that, Jackie, because this is where they want us. This is where they want us.
And you only get this result when you've been living in a fascist state
I must be scaring people because numbers are going down. I must be scaring y'all. I must be scaring y'all out there. Oh my God!
Oh my God! What is he talking about? Well, look, let's take a little break.
Black Lives Matter.
Because that always gets people running off somewhere. So let's take a little break before we get into the rest of our show. For about 2 to 3 minutes, y'all, we're just going to take a little break. Go get a drink. Go get a snack, and we shall be right back. Hey, that rhymed, and I didn't mean for it to.
Yeah.
Hey folks, we have returned. So yeah, it's it's crazy how people are just really shocked at what the United States is doing, not just domestically, because honestly, the United States has been a fascist country for quite some time, and not just because of the things that we just talked about a minute ago, where the budget, the federal budget, and a lot of the state budgets have gone so unequally toward some type of law enforcement, whether we're talking about the federal budget for the Department of Defense or state and local budgets pouring millions, sometimes billions of dollars into their police departments, as opposed to their departments of education, their department of social services, their departments of health, their affordable housing. You know, the people don't get anything, but the police and the Department of Defense and law enforcement, they get everything. And then they wonder why people are angry and in the streets. And then they, at the same time, they demand that people go back to work, and then they demand that people send their children back to school, all happening in an unsafe environment where people have no support from the government.
Trump wants to create these distractions because he knows how bad this is for him. If people are going back to work, if people are sending their kids back to school, if everything goes the way that Trump wants it, then people are not going to. Well, he wants people to forget about how much he bungled this thing.
Yeah.
This is all about him. This is all about his reelection. All he wants is for everybody to get busy into work. You get busy into work, and all of a sudden now it's like because unfortunately this is the world we live in. So now all of a sudden now, Corona's not going to be the news much anymore, because everybody's going back to work. And then what's happening is Trump is going to, he's going to try to use that as some kind of bragging rights to say, well, look what I did. I got the schools open. I got this. I got that. In spite of people getting sick, in spite of people, just and in spite of the United States becoming more and more of a diseased nation. For him, in his warped, sick, narcissistic mind, that's somehow a victory.
Right. And he's having these thoughts planned as the United States standing, if you want to call it that. Now, look, we're not making the argument that the United States should be the police of the world, or should be
right.
At the pinnacle of global the global geopolitical pyramid. But we're just recognizing the fact that this country has been.
Yeah, post World War II, yeah.
Yeah, through sheer military bullying, that's what this country has been. But that's changing. That's changing. It has been changing for a minute, but the response to the coronavirus pandemic has precipitated that change to come about a lot faster.
Right.
So other countries around the world are responding to the United States losing its place of dominance and preeminence in the geopolitical equation.
Right, which has been, in my view, and I mean, in my opinion, the United States has been losing ground internationally for quite some time. As we've seen the rise of China, we've seen the rise of other economies like India and stuff. And we've seen that the United States, because it has to rely more and more on its military might, because it has lost influence diplomatically and in other areas. So they have to now it's like, well, like Teddy Roosevelt said, well, carry a big stick. Well, now they have to use that stick because they don't have any credibility to. When you're talking about administrations past talking about either you're with us or against us and all this bullying and John Wayne-ish type behavior, and all of this unilateral talk and stuff, that has turned off a lot of the international community towards the way towards the United States, and the way that the United States uses its power. You used to have soft power and hard power. The United States no longer has no soft power. So they squandered that. So so they can't be trusted. They can't be trusted to honor treaties. They can't be trusted to honor international agreements or anything like that. So now you have other nations who, and mainly China, who are starting to become major players on the world scene, challenging the dominance of the United States, not only economically but increasingly militarily. So what's happening is that COVID, you had the United States with this slide, but what COVID has done is like it just threw like hot grease on that slide and a slide
on
right.
the slide that the
yeah.
United States is on. Yeah, we're just sliding down the slide.
Right.
I mean, imagine like when you were a kid and you're in the playground and it's a hot day and because the slide is always metal and the slide is never under the trees.
Right.
It's always out in the middle of the playground where the sun has been burning the metal of the slide.
You can find egg on the slide.
And then you've got your little shorts on, so you've got to like lift your legs up to slide down because you don't want the back of your legs to get burned by the slide. But just so that you could slide down that thing faster and make it more fun, what does somebody do? Come along and pour some hot grease down. So now, not only are you sliding down the thing like a bat out of hell, but you're also like on fire.
You're on fire. Right.
That's what the United States is like.
This is what Corona has done. This is what Corona. I mean, let's look at it. I mean, Americans aren't. The European Union shut the borders.
Yeah.
They don't want Americans over there because they're afraid we're coming over there all diseased up. They don't want. They don't want us coming over there contaminating them. They got enough problems already. I mean, this administration especially has really squandered any type of goodwill towards America. I mean, just basically squandered what little of that was left.
Oh, just
right.
Yeah.
I mean, so I mean, we're just becoming an international pariah throughout the world, and now nature abhors a vacuum. So now what's happening is you got this superpower that's steadily declining, that is losing its superpower capabilities. Except we could blow up everybody, but as far as everything else, is really deteriorating. Declining. And so now there's a vacuum, and you have other nations who's starting to fill in, and that's what's getting and America doesn't like that, and so now you got it's funny, I used to love these spy movies and stuff like that, and I know we're going to get into that story later, but I never thought that I would see the day. And trust me, I got my own stories of police brutality and stuff like that. But I never thought I'd see the day when you could be walking down the street in America as an average citizen. I ain't talking about no spy stuff. Just a citizen. And because they don't like your politics, they just snatch you off the street.
Yeah, I mean,
we're going to get into that.
Yeah,
but that's something I was thinking about.
Yeah, we are that's welcome to the fascist states of America, y'all. We just keep telling you. But an external result of these internal politics that people quite honestly have just ignored all these years is the decline in the influence that the United States has around the world. And like you said, nature abhors a vacuum. So what happens when these other countries that the United States has honestly bullied and just exerted its imperialistic influence over and has been picking a Cold War with since World War II.
Right.
What happens? They form alliances with each other to fill that vacuum. And real quick, we just want to show you what is going on in the rest of the world as the United States is on fire, sliding down that slide on the hot grease. I mean, Russia and India are teaming up to join investment for joint investment projects in Asia and Africa. Africa is going to become, and actually we think Africa is already on track being a key focal point in whatever this post-COVID world is going to look like.
Prior to COVID, Africa had the fastest growing economies on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
They have the youngest population on the planet. So you had those two factors that was working in the favor of a lot of African nations. You had a young population and you had economic growth.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what these other nations, especially the Chinese and Russia and India and all these, this is, and of course, you know, the Europeans who are still trying to hold on, who's still trying to hold on to what they've been exploiting, you know. Stuff.
Right.
So I mean, so yeah, post COVID, you had that, and so again, you're right. After COVID, there's going to be a new international world dynamics that's going to happen, and Africa is definitely going to be playing a big part in it.
And you know, something that you say all the time about Russia in particular, that Putin has always wanted to. How did you put it? That Putin wants to restore Russia's reputation around the world.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you know, ever since a lot of the Putin's generation, especially those who were part of the old Soviet Union and their apparatuses and stuff, they yearned to return back to a superpower Russia. You know, when after the breakup of the Soviet Union and a lot of the influence that Russia lost because of that, you know, their ability to challenge the United States imperialism had been lost once the breakup of the Soviet Union. China wasn't a major player yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
right.
so you know, so Russia lost a lot of ground. Yeah, they could still nuke the hell out of us, but in other areas of international dominance, the Russians couldn't compete with the United States. So you had people like Putin who came through the old system,
right?
And others, man, who want to go back to a time when Russia was a force to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm. And the key in that desire for Russia is. Part of that key is Africa.
Yeah, part of the key for all of them is Africa.
And why is that? What do we say so frequently? What have we said on this show so frequently? Africa is the place in the world where everybody wants something from, but nobody wants to pay for it.
Dr. John Henry Clark. That was his famous quote. Mm-hmm. And that's how it's been since the Europeans. And I mean, even before the Europeans. I mean, you know, Africa has had its share of incursions by the Arabs, you know.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know, Arabs slave trade, European slave trade. So I mean, before them it was the Romans, you know. So I mean, Africa has always had to deal with outsiders coming in after its riches and its resources and stuff. I mean, the Roman Empire became the Roman Empire because of African riches.
Right.
You know, and we know that Western Europe, you know, became rich, and America became rich off of African resources, including its people, which is a resource. The intellectual capabilities that they bring to the table. Europeans in this country couldn't feed themselves until, you know, they had to, during the slave trade, they had to get Africans who were skilled at growing rice and who had the technology of growing certain crops and stuff just so they can make it. You know, Native Americans that taught them what to eat and what not to eat and stuff. Right. Which is not saying that anything bad about Europeans, but you're coming from another continent. Right. So, you know, you're coming from another continent, invading someone else's continent. And, you know, you don't know what to eat.
Exactly. And then these people help you not, like, kill yourselves from eating poison ivy. And teaching you what to eat. And what do? You murder those people and take their stuff and claim that it's yours.
Right.
So, I mean, and we're going to examine the relationship between Africa, China, Russia, India, and all these other countries in upcoming shows because it is incredibly important. Ultimately, we believe that Africa is going to be key to whatever the global hegemony will be after this pandemic.
And let me make this clear because, you know, see this is the problem, and I got to be straight. One of the problems that I see in this whole left movement is this is this fatigue that we get a lot of times about talking about black people. You know what I mean? It's still there.
Yeah.
And there's this fatigue of talking about black people, and the thing of it is the fact that the reason why we have to focus on what Africa's role is going to be post-COVID, I mean really going into the next century, is the fact that this has a lot to do with our situations. And when I say our, I'm talking about the descendants of Africans who were enslaved throughout the world. Now, the reason why Africa is important, because dependent on the way Africa is going to be situated, has a lot to do with what our situation is going to be.
Yes.
And this is the whole point of, the Pan-Africanist ideology. This is the whole point of movements that is trying to reconnect the African diaspora with the African continent. Because, see, they made us believe that we don't have no stake there, while everybody else is coming in getting rich.
Right. Right.
But we're told, though, that we don't have no place there. And so now we're seeing a different dynamic when even African countries themselves are starting to, of course, Africa has been so exploited, had been so underdeveloped, based upon the exploitation, is the fact that you got a lot of Africans now and leaders who are starting to understand the role that they're playing. But they understand it not just amongst themselves. They understand the more global implications of it, which is why you have nations now in Africa who are saying to African Americans and others, come back home.
That's right.
Help us develop.
That's right.
Because they see that in a world that is becoming increasingly resource poor, where Africa has more than 40% of the world's resources left, those who are thinking are saying that in the coming decades, in the next century, in a world that is increasingly becoming resource poor due to capitalism, that can't be sustained. So now what's happening is that now you're going to have this which has already been which is already underway. Now you're going to have this new gold rush to get and take over what's left of the world's resources, which is in Africa. This is one of the reasons why the Chinese is building the Belt Road Initiative project.
Right.
This is the reason why that's their end game. This is the reason why the Japanese, for the first time since World War II, has a military base in Africa. This is the reason why the Chinese have a naval base in Africa. Why Russia now all of a sudden now want to rebuild their bases in Africa. Why Russia just made a deal with the Nigerians to develop their steel industry. Why America is only offering AFRICOM, which is a militaristic relationship with Africa, but they don't want to give you anything. All these other nations are thinking ahead, and they're saying, look, we know that in the next 100 years or so, there ain't going to be nothing left but Africa.
That's right.
So they're already, when you see these projects being built today, they're being built for what they expect 100 years down the road.
That's right. Look, I know that's a lot. We know that's a lot, but that's the truth. And we have to dig into the truth of that over the next few weeks, because this is not an easy thing to examine. But you need to understand that world leaders are thinking about what to do with Africa and Africans, and to an extension, all Africans throughout the diaspora, like you said, for the next 100 years. They're not thinking of us like the United States is thinking of us right now and has been dealing with us. Not to say that there's not racism in other countries, but other countries' leaders, we feel like, no, okay, we can't get rid of all of them. So how can we situate ourselves to be in some kind of a relationship with these people in this continent so that we get what we want?
Right.
For the least amount of money and effort, but we give them enough so that they don't rebel against us. We're going to get into that.
Right.
Because, see, what is going on here in the United States, and we're going to close on this. You want to talk about the fascist states of America? I understand that, people are just shocked and horrified about what's going on in Portland.
Right.
I understand. I do, and I know that, sometimes when I post stuff on Facebook, y'all who are my Facebook friends, and I post stuff on Facebook, and if it seems like I'm impatient with people, it's because I am. Honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't understand how y'all are shocked, but I have to train myself to rein that in, Abdus, because I have to remember that by and large, the American public has the political memory of a fat mosquito. Seriously. I mean, people, it's like
and that's been developed. That's been groomed.
Oh, yeah. It's
it wasn't always that way.
It was not always that way, because we used to have a media that actually sort of told more of the truth than they do now. But, I mean, people actually believe that this country had problems only when Donald Trump was elected.
Right.
Like, things started going wrong when Donald Trump was elected, and we're here to tell you that's just not true. Now, if you've been following Luqman Nation for some time, we have talked about this story before. But we understand that Portland and what's going on with these unidentified, heavily armed federal police forces snatching folks up off the street just because.
Right, and when you look, it's frightening when you look at the videos of this. It seems like we've been invaded by a foreign army. You and I remember Red Dawn and all this stuff. And, when the Russians and Cubans invaded America and stuff. And we say, oh, well, that could never happen. But the thing of it is looking at these videos and seeing these unmarked cars and these guys walking around in camouflage war gear and stuff like that. I mean, it really looks like that we've been invaded by a foreign nation, it's pretty frightening. It
is pretty frightening, it's not just Portland, and I understand we're having a little bit of a delay, a little choppiness going on, so we apologize for that. We'll fix that by next week, but yeah, we understand that America has a secret police problem. This is an article that is published in what is this? The New Republic.
Right.
The New Republic magazine. Matt Ford wrote this article. There's a lot you don't know about why the cops on your streets what the cops on your streets are doing, and they aim to keep it that way. Now this was published on June 27th. This was last month. Before what was going on over the past week was going on in Portland, right? And he talks about how he went down to the protests here in D.C. And if you have been following us on Twitter, if you've been following the producer, one of the producers, because I'm the other producer for By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik, the other producer is Wyatt Reed. You need to follow him on Twitter,
right?
Because he has gone down to Black Lives Matter Plaza in the middle of the night and have taken video of the police waiting until everybody's gone, waiting until all the people, the vendors have packed up their stuff and gone, and all the people coming down taking pictures have gone, and waited until under cover of night to harass the protesters and to destroy their belongings, ripping down tents, tearing up medical supplies, arresting people. They've been doing this every single night since the beginning of the protest there. But do you hear it on the news?
No.
Do you see it on the news? No.
No, because the violence is being done by the police, not by the protesters.
Exactly.
And that's why the news isn't there.
That's why the news isn't there. So in Portland,
yep,
people have been protesting for 50 days, which has been the case almost everywhere across the country where these protests after the public lynching of George Floyd have occurred. There have been protests every single day, and it's been pretty much 50 days. You don't see footage of the protests on the news anymore. If one of the protesters does something wrong, there'll be some coverage of that. But the news, like you said, is also not covering all of the police repression that's going on against these protesters everywhere the protests exist until Portland. And it only got coverage because enough people were tweeting about it and posting it on social media.
Isn't that something?
And I mean, we're going to criticize social media for its weaknesses and faults, but social media has changed the game for the regular, for independent media. So social media posts pushed the corporate media to pay attention to these masked, unarmed people, fully militarized from head to toe, literally snatching people off the street, snatching them into a rented car or a rented van, and the people whisking them away somewhere.
Yep.
So that's been going on for a minute. And this is a really good article about the kind of history of secrecy in law enforcement that has been going on before Portland. That is very, very recent, that you can find in the New Republic. But I want you to understand how long this really has been going on. For those of you who have been following Luqman Nation for a while, you remember us talking about this story in 2015. Mm-hmm. See right here, this article is more than 4 years old. You remember us talking about Holman Square.
Yep.
Where the Guardian broke this story, not an American news outlet. The Guardian, a British news outlet, broke the story that in Chicago, police disappeared 7,000 people. They would snatch people up off the street, claim that they were arresting them for some garbage charge, but then hold people in isolation and detention at the Holman Square facility and not let anybody know where they were. People couldn't call their lawyers. They weren't given phone calls to call their families. Their families didn't know where they were. People were held for months.
Right. They wouldn't even let you inside the place.
Nope.
Yep.
This was now this didn't happen in 2014. Do you know how long this was going on for? From 2004.
Over 10 years.
To 2015.
A whole decade.
And let's be real, folks. Let's be real, Abdus. We know this has been going on for longer than a decade.
Right.
Because if we are really honest, this is the way law enforcement has operated with black people, with Latino people, with Native American people, with the LGBTQ community, ever since it existed.
And you know, it's amazing that, especially when all the communities that you just named, all of the rebellions, including the LGBT with
Stonewall,
right,
the Stonewall riot,
right, all of it, all of them have one thing in common: the relationship with the police.
Exactly. And if we want to expand it and look at the way law enforcement has been used to put down strikes throughout history, law enforcement and the National Guard and the military have been used to put down strikes, have been used against anti-war protesters. So this idea that what's going on in Portland right now with this, mysterious secret police kind of thing, as this idea that it's some kind of aberration, that it's unusual for the way the police or law enforcement in general operate in the United States. Because when we think about it, let's say, okay, this is a federal, because people will make the distinction, there's a difference between state law enforcement, local law enforcement, and federal troops, and these are federal troops, and that's why it makes this so much worse that Trump has done. Eddie Conway of the Real News Network, a brother who's a political prisoner until very recently, who we are honored to know, often tells a story of the reason he didn't go to Vietnam when he was about to go, he was in Germany on his way to Vietnam. He is reading the newspaper. He sees a picture of military tanks on the streets in New Jersey.
Newark.
In Newark.
Yep.
And he sees the soldier. Now, Eddie is in the army. He's about to go to Vietnam. He sees the soldier manning a 50 caliber gun. And the gun is pointed at a bunch of black women standing on the corner who were protesting.
Well, and you know, but and another side story is that one of those women who was in the housing project in Newark, New Jersey, actually lost her leg when they actually fired the 50 caliber.
That's right. That was the was that the National Guard or was that the Army?
That was the National Guard.
That was the National Guard. If you look at the protests, the uprisings throughout the 60s and the 70s, who was called in? What was called in to quell the uprisings? The National Guards. And if you look at the accounts of most of those uprisings, the National Guard did fire on unarmed citizens who were mostly black, Latinx, and Native Americans.
Yeah.
So
Kent State, they fired on white kids too.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Come on now.
I mean, when the state decides to use violence, nobody's safe from it.
So I understand. Listen, and I have to apologize because sometimes I just get really impatient with people because I really want y'all to understand that this isn't new. And
it's new to them.
I have to
right, to use what James Baldwin said when we was watching this video earlier today, which is on my page now. When Dick Cavett was talking about the more black radicals like Stokely Carmichael, and H. Rap Brown and all, and how they're terrifying, and and should James Baldwin and others, I guess who Cavett probably was trying to label more respectable or less threatening.
Less threatening.
And Baldwin said, well, we've always felt that way, which we looked at a stunned Cavett because he was James Baldwin was actually revealing to him some of the secret, and well, maybe not so secret, but at least to white people, how black folks really felt about this country, felt about his relationship to this country. And he said, no, we've always felt that way. It's new to you.
Right.
And that's that's the same thing that we see with what's been going on since George Floyd. All of this outrage over George Floyd's killing, but then but we've lived with this since we've been here. Yeah. So so when we were talking about how the police did us, we were told that we're being done that way because somehow we're the criminals, and somehow we don't comply with authority, and somehow our culture is bad, and so basically
we're the fathers,
right? We're deserving of this type of ill treatment, and then now because of the technology and thing that's happened with George Floyd, now the rest of America is seeing, just like they saw back in the 60s when they put them hoses on them kids and stuff, and since we talking about John Lewis passing,
right,
when they walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge and seen the brutality of the state towards peaceful protesters, and that got a lot of white people involved because it was in their living rooms. You know what I mean? It could, and these images went around the world. And so here it is 50 years later, and then you got George Floyd, the images going around the world, and so people saying, oh wow, the black people were right. Yeah, we've been saying this. But see now, pardon me, but now it's like, well, what are we going to do about it? I don't know what you're going to do. All I know is this has always been our reality.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So when we say welcome to the fascist states of America, we're not saying like welcome to the fascist states of America because it's fascist now. No. We're saying welcome to our existence. Welcome to our experience in these fascist states of America, because this has always been our experience, and I cannot help but
what you're trying to say is we all niggas now.
Oh, see, I was trying to find a polite way to say it.
We's all niggas now.
So for real, listen, this is the system. This is the country. This is the country that we have always lived in. Like my husband just said, yeah, we all niggas now.
Yep.
So this idea that we're going to negotiate with this system to get this kind of you can't negotiate with fascism. I don't think that we have to explain to anybody that that's true. We understand how fascism operates, and we've been trying to tell you this for, I don't know, as long as we've been here as a people, I suppose. But now here it is in your backyard, and please don't let anybody twist this thing around. Because when people say things like, oh, we need a multiracial coalition, we all need to work together, they're usually directing those kind of conversations at black people as if we don't want to work with other folks. But we have been trying to get other people to understand what this country is for decades, for centuries. So the conversation that you need to have with your people, your family, your friends, your neighbors is, this is what this country really, really is. And if we don't want our children to grow up in this country, then we have got to fight alongside black people, native people, Latinx people for better for all of us. You cannot look at this any longer as, oh, it's just the blacks and the Hispanics and the Indians whining about this is the greatest country in the world. For real? Ask those people in Portland how great they feel like this country is for them right now.
Well, and then and if we think that, again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but and a Biden election is not going to make it any better. Biden may slow the train a little bit towards what I believe is going to be a total all-out fascism in this country. Biden may slow the train a little bit. He might do a detour. But we have to remember that it was Barack Obama's administration that made it legal for police to snatch people up off the streets, and if they were suspected of any type of anti-American activities.
That's right.
It was Barack, change and hope and Nobel Prize, Peace Prize winning Obama, who allowed that to happen and who signed it into law. I guess it's a law, but
the National Defense Authorization Act.
National Defense Authorization Act. So the Democrats and the Republicans, they're only out there to protect they're out there to protect the status quo. This train, we've crossed the line, and this country crossed the line. We're heading straight towards a country that within the next few years, you think you don't recognize this country now. In the next 10 years, this country is going to be, those of us that live to see it and who's been around long enough to have known it to be at least a little different, we are not going to recognize the United States, I believe, in the next 10 to 20 years. Because COVID has basically pushed, COVID has exposed some very has exposed some very strong inequalities, have really showed that this country is built upon shifting sands. It's not a strong, solid foundation. The fact that the American people, forget about the government, that the American people have been so brainwashed that you're not going to get a unified national response to this. You're not going to get a unified national response to a government that's taking us closer and closer to fascism. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get it because the billionaire class, they've gotten too good at it. They've gotten too good at manipulating these class divides. And as long as we feel in this country that as long as I got 10 cents more than you, or I can get 10 cents more than you, that somehow me and you don't have nothing in common, then that's going to keep. Then they like that. That's going to further their agenda. I don't see, I don't see this. And I know people say that, well, where's the hope? The hope is, folks, is that there's going to be that we are going to have to make some hard choices, and it's not going to be at the ballot box. We're going to have to make some hard choices. We're going to have to make those choices that many of us might not come back from, because that's the only, if you want to save the soul of this country, because they got the ballot box rigged. They, we can't even get our the people's candidate if you're a Democrat, you can't even get a decent candidate for the Democratic Party to even take. They're going to give us who they want.
Right.
So
Exactly.
they rigged this. So the thing of it is that, yeah, we can play the game with them, but if you really want to save the soul of this country, and you plan on staying here and having some little bit of freedom, it's going to require some sacrifices that many of us probably just aren't prepared to make.
You know what? And I can't say I disagree with you. I'm, you know, and on this we're going to close. You know, we've said it over and over again, y'all. You know, we're not going to tell people who to vote for, and we're, you know, actually in disagreement with quite a few people who we hold in very high esteem and who love,
okay.
and
Okay.
you know, who, you know, we consider them family, and they consider us family, and that's okay, because family can disagree.
But what did Clemenza say? These things have to happen.
These things have to happen.
It gets rid of the bad blood.
It's okay. It's okay that we disagree.
Yeah,
Listen,
these things have to happen.
you know, people, I'm fine with people saying, look, we have to vote for Joe Biden because Trump is the existential threat to the country. And if that's how you feel, then go ahead and vote for Joe Biden. But here's what you had better not do if that's how you feel. Don't dare, when Biden wins the presidency, if that's what happens, don't you dare go home and act like you've done some stuff and all the danger is past and you don't have to work anymore, because see, Biden doesn't want any of the things that the people want. So, okay, fine, you elect Biden and he doesn't do the overtly hateful things that Trump does, but he's still doing the covertly hateful things that created a situation for Trump to even exist as a viable political candidate in the first place. So what did the people get? Nothing. So vote for Biden, that's fine, and be prepared to continue to work and stay in these streets and make those sacrifices that you would have had to make if Trump wins. Regardless of who wins the presidency in 2020, this year, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. Because we're not going to have freedom under Biden. We're not going to have it under Trump. So that's right. How we feel about that.
And just one note, we didn't already said on this show, and I know folks, whether you agree with us or not, but it's fine. We said on this show that all of this stuff about thinking that, you know, that somehow you could bully Biden into accepting this radical leftist agenda, you don't have any leverage. Biden knows you don't have any leverage. That's why he's not really campaigning hard. He knows you don't have any. Trump is a man who is desperate. He's on a scorched earth policy because he understands that the jig is up. You know, I mean, it would take a comet or something to fall out of the sky for this man to win re-election. He's losing, man. Even his own base is running from him.
Yeah.
And the more that this pandemic starts to affect people more and more, and then they fail to pass another stimulus for people, oh, you know he's done. So Biden knows that. These people have calculated already. So Biden is like, yeah, he's going to give us all the lip service to keep us in his camp. But then after that, man, you know, it's going to be like, hey, look, you knew I was a snake when you knew I was a snake when you saw him in the yard. Don't get mad now because you got bit.
So thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in to our show this week. We hope you appreciate the commentary and the analysis and the jokes, which are always great, I think, anyway. Listen, if you like what you hear and see here in Luqman Nation, consider becoming a patron. You can find us on patreon.com/Luqman Nation, LuqMannation. We have exclusive content for patrons only, and we have regular old content that everybody can share with all of your friends and family, and some people that you do not like also, so that they can be, enlightened into a new way of thinking. As always, you can subscribe to us on YouTube.
Subscribe.
Luqman Nation.
Yep.
You can like us on Facebook, Coffee, Current Events, and Politics in Luqman Nation. And, just be really good to each other and yourselves this week. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and one thing is just another thing about we do a patron only show on Wednesday.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
around this time. Right. Most of the time we try to do it on Wednesday. They've been very, very generous and patient with us because, you know, they know that
we appreciate
it. But the thing of it is we work just as hard to try to you know, give good content on the patron show as we do with you guys. So we try to hope that nobody's lacking, man. But look, man, become a patron, man. You come over there, man, and because the patrons be hanging out, man. They be, you know. So I mean, you know, so we have fun. I mean, I know that last show we had a lot of fun.
A lot.
And you know, I'm still pooped from that show. That's probably why. But yeah, I'm still pooped, you know. Yeah, so those are another reasons to become a patron. And again, we are the most threatening, the most dangerous, the most controversial show because we tell the truth. We don't star chase. We don't, you know, we say this all the time. We don't star chase. We don't, you know, we don't know about TikTok. We don't know about all these things. We just do what we do, and we leave all the rest of the stuff to everybody else, man. And you know, we stay in our lane, and we keep our ear to the ground. That's what we do. Jackie and I, we keep our ears to the ground, and we tell y'all which way the rumbling is going.
That's it. So, rumble, young man, rumble.
Yep.
Y'all be really good to each other this weekend. As always, peace. Only if you're willing to fight for it. And we're going to have to now. Good night.